You're listening to the StudioPTBO podcast, where we talk all things marketing to help you build and grow your business online. Welcome to the latest episode. Welcome to the StudioPTBO podcast. We are back, and we are back with another guest, Neil Morton. This is super exciting.
It is.
Who do we have?
We have a rock star in the house. Jimmy Bowskill from the Sheepdogs in the house. And welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the studio, and thanks
Glad
for coming.
to be here.
Yeah, this is excellent.
Yeah,
so
man.
you are in town to play Music Fest, the wonderful Peterborough Music Fest, with the Sheepdogs, and expecting a huge crowd. And you actually played at Music Fest as a teenager for the first time, didn't you?
I did, yeah. Yeah, with my own band back in the day.
Yeah. So that was like one of your first big breaks.
Yeah, that was a good show for sure.
Yeah. How old were you then? Like,
Jeez,
is it true you were like a tween then when you played for the first time?
I would have been, yeah. I would have been probably 17 or 18, I think, but...
Were you nervous?
Not really,
No, you just like to play?
I love to play, man, and, a hometown show is always exciting, so...
Yeah.
It's still the same feeling now,
Awesome. Yeah. You're just sort of like... It seemed like from the day you were born and doing research on you, you're just sort of... loved playing, loved music, loved playing the guitar. Like, so you literally started when you were 10 years old?
I started at 10.
Yeah?
And was just immediately super infatuated with the guitar, Initially, I had an old Stella guitar, and the action was a mile high on it, It was just impossible to play.
It's like the hardest thing to play.
Oh, just brutal.
Yeah.
So I made a deal with my dad. He said, if you get 10 A's on your report card, I'll get you an electric guitar, something decent, Yeah. The most I'd ever gotten was 1 or 2. I was never the greatest student,
Did you get the guitar?
I got 8 A's that year,
Okay,
and I got the guitar.
Okay.
Close enough.
And that was kind of the start for me,
Awesome. So take me back through kind of the journey, I guess. Like, how did you get to where you are today? Like, maybe like you went to PCBS, correct?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe take us through like, what it was like growing up in Peterborough, because like tonight's going to be an awesome night. You're back here in Peterborough, you're playing. So maybe take us through the backstory. How did you get to where you are today?
Jeez. That's a long story.
We got time.
Yeah, man.
I would say a lot of resilience
Yeah.
from reading up on you, like a lot of hustle, and like we have a lot of entrepreneurs on the show, Jimmy, and I think that's what you're getting at here, that like your tenacity. I mean, obviously you have to have God-given talent and creativity, but like you hustle. Like one of my favorite stories about you was, and you can pick this up, is when you were young, your dad taking you to Jeff Healy's bar.
To Healy's,
yeah. So like it started then. So like
I guess that kind of was the start of my career.
So
overall,
let's start there. Tell people that story about
Yeah.
Jeff Healy and you busking outside of his bar.
Yeah. So I got the guitar after I got 8 A's.
Once upon a time, I got 8 A's.
Yeah, and it's probably the last time I ever get that many too.
Oh, I'm with you there.
But I just was so infatuated with the guitar, I never put it down. I just wanted to learn and learn. So I got pretty good, within a 6-month period. I was able to play the guitar, and I learned some songs, and I got really hard into the blues, and started learning a lot of Robert Johnson songs and Son House kind of stuff. And we heard through the grapevine that Jeff Healy did a special guest night on Thursday nights at Healy's in Toronto, Queen of Bathurst, and I wanted to go. I was not quite 11 yet, and I'd been playing guitar for about 8 months, and
No fake ID at 11.
Yeah, exactly. So my dad called the bar, and he says, you think my son could come down and play for the open mic night or whatever? And they said, well, it's actually a special guest night, and no, your 10-year-old son can't come and play at the bar. So I bugged him, and he took me down anyway. And I just busked out front because I figured Jeff had to come through the door. And I was a fan. I wanted to meet him.
Yeah, good on you.
And he did come through the door, And I met all his band that night. And I was out front playing Robert Johnson songs. And I guess they were surprised to hear someone that young playing old blues stuff like that, So we had a good chat out front. And I was invited in that night to play a tune. And that was my first time on stage.
You just never know in life.
Yeah, and the bass player that night, Alec Fraser, he had a studio in Toronto called Liquid Studios, and he offered me studio time for nothing. Just
took a chance,
just
on
a
you.
solid dude.
Yeah.
And that was when I made my first album. Off of the friendship of others and help, and it's just fantastic.
But when did your first album come out?
I would have been 11, I think, 11 or 12.
And
So I worked on it, shortly after that night, really.
and Jeff Healy played trumpet on that.
He did, yeah.
That's crazy.
Okay,
It was a
so-
pretty star-studded cast, that that
Let's
album.
bring
man.
that
It was
out.
cool. Holy, look at that relic.
There we go.
What is that?
That is. This is this
Yeah,
guy.
what is that thing?
Yeah. You zoom in on that Electric
Yeah.
City Rob. So he's come a long way, but
Yeah.
this was the first album CD. So the team, the huge fans of the Sheepdogs, they went over to Blue Streak Records today and grabbed this.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
man.
so
amazing.
so I was going through the.
They had a copy there. Eh?
Yeah.
I don't even have a copy of that.
Yeah, they want you to sign this actually before you leave. But I was
Absolutely.
reading through it. I had like Jeff Healy played trumpet on that. Like that's amazing, eh? When you get people in your ecosystem to take a chance on you.
See
It's
the
awful
resemblance.
nice, man.
Yeah, I do see the resemblance. I'm
Yeah.
like, so that was 2002, and wow, you come a long way.
That's pretty neat.
And where did that take you then after that moment with Jeff Healy doing this with him? You just kept hustling, and
Was that like a defining moment, like in your career? Like, do you think that kind of gave you the catapult to kind of go to the next level?
It did for sure. You know, I was good at playing the blues at a young age, and the Toronto blues scene came together to help me make this album.
That's
So I
amazing.
got to meet everyone.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of thrown into the fire, which was fantastic. So all the people I met, I had a bunch of support right from the get-go,
That's
So I
unique.
was able to do some shows around my first album, sold a bunch, and then I was able to do a second record. And that one was nominated for a Juno. You
Yeah,
know?
that was when
Wow.
you were 14, right?
Yeah.
14.
14, you got a
Nominated for a
Juno.
Juno.
So kind of neat, it just kind of
Yeah.
blew up in the blues world, and it was a trip, man.
So are you the biggest personality to ever come out of Baileyboro? Like you must be. Like Jimmy
Well,
Bowskill. You must be a legend there now.
Diane
like,
Rogers is giving me a run for her money. She owns she runs Dudu's Bakery.
Oh yeah,
And she's
Oh,
won-
I've met her before.
That's a hard one.
yeah, she actually.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
she's brought them in here for us
Yeah,
before. Yeah, that's a hard one. It's Jimmy versus
Jimmy versus the baker.
cupcakes.
Well, what she won,
Yeah.
it's butter tart. She's
Butter
won the
tart,
best,
sorry,
best
not
butter tart in
cupcakes.
Canada,
Yeah,
like
Dudu's
5 times in
Yeah.
a row or something. She wins all the competitions. She's just
Wow.
killing it, man. It's something else,
Yeah, you
So I
gotta-
think she's the most famous.
You need a one-upper.
person
You need
from
to be
Baileyboro.
like, I'm a musician, and you just got to go to baking now.
Yeah, that's it.
Or the Sheepdogs
Yeah.
need to film a video
Yeah.
there someday.
Yeah,
And,
that'd be
Yeah,
amazing.
totally.
yeah. But what was Baileyboro? What was it like growing up there? I mean, I know it's not that far removed from Peterborough. It's like 10 minutes from the city. But
Yeah, when
was
you
it a
say-
different feel there, or
It was for sure.
Yeah.
It was very rural when I was growing up, more
Okay.
so than it is now even. But it was a great little community, man. There's all these cool little spots to check out, abandoned barns and buildings. And,
Yeah.
there's the school there, so I could walk to school, and I'd snowshoe to school in the winter. And just, it was a great spot to grow up, man.
Yeah.
And my folks still live there, and it's a beautiful town.
Now, when it comes to PCVS, because like it's so unique that like you went to PCVS, like there are so many people, musicians specifically, that we've had on the show, like Kate Sir, Must Pain.
Serena Ryder?
They like for some reason they all have gravitated towards PCVS, and like
Yeah.
they all grew up there, and they all went off and did their musical career or art career, whatever they're doing. Like,
Yeah.
what was it like growing up, going to PCVS, learning about the arts? Like, was it a big catapult to your career in music?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I don't think I could really relate anything to do with my career with going to school there.
Oh, really? Okay.
But at the same time, it was very cool to, be immersed, in
Yeah.
an arts culture, man. Like
Yep,
everyone
totally.
there they have the same mindset.
Yeah.
They're going for something, and they're learning, and it's a good vibe. So it was a cool school to go to for that. And
Okay.
There's always lots of musicians to play with.
Yeah.
And, I ended up making a lifelong friendship with one of my teachers, Dan Fewings.
Okay.
Oh,
And,
damn, yeah.
He's a Peterborough staple,
Yeah,
you
his
know.
son plays in a band,
Yeah.
doesn't he?
Yeah,
His
Josh
son-
Fewings.
Josh.
He plays in the May Hemingways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man. Yeah.
So we've been close friends, for years because of that. And that's actually a good story too. He's responsible for me being accepted into that school
Oh,
because I couldn't read music,
okay.
and I still can't,
Either can I. So,
So,
you're not alone there.
So I got an acceptance letter, but then they brought it to review because I couldn't read music, and they said, well, we can't accept somebody that doesn't read music. So Dan Fewings
Goes to his dad.
Yeah, in the meeting,
Huh.
he said, I've been teaching guitar here for 20 years, 15, 20 years. He said, if you're not going to accept him because he can't read music, I can't read music either, so I'm quitting. That's what he said.
That's amazing.
So they let me in, man.
Wow, I love those moments, eh? Even going to bat like that, and
so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's totally cool, man. And did you end up playing at other schools, like when you were in high school, play music? Like, did you ever did you do air bands, or what happened in high school for you to get gigs?
Not
was
necessarily.
It really just outside of school.
I was touring hard when I was in high school. So school was hard, man. Like, I was gone most of the time.
You weren't getting 8 A's in high school, were you?
No. Well, I was touring Europe, and you know, I was played in Japan a bunch, and I was all over the place, and was just kind of scraping by with my schooling, you know. And because I went to an art school, I think the teachers were very supportive of me being gone and pursuing my career in the arts, you know. So they would give me, you know, schoolwork to do on the road, and you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so you're kind of homeschooled almost.
Makeup stuff, you know. They were good that way. So you're fortunate.
Brand, if you call it, Jimmy Bowskill. We won't get into marketing branding, but you built like quite a brand organically. Like it wasn't calculated. You're not really heavy on social media, like doing this or doing that. You're just super chill. Like as I was checking out what you've done.
Yeah.
What did it like? Is that by building that brand and building your networks over the years? Was that sort of how you landed with the Sheepdogs, or being in their funnel or their ecosystem, or? Like, what happened with that story? How did you end up joining the Sheepdogs in 2015?
Well, I don't know. I've been at it a long time, and I don't think they hadn't really heard of me before.
Okay.
You know? And
that's a good, honest answer.
Yeah. So I was brought in because they had a guitar player leave about 2/3 of the way through a tour.
Okay.
For personal reasons, he had to go home, and they were kind of in a bind. They needed someone right away. And I played guitar in... their guitar tech's band, who's a good friend of mine, Steve Pachalski.
Okay.
And he said, I know a guy. He said, I bet a week's wages that this guy's going to be the best fit for the band. And they said, okay, you're on, you know. So they brought me in.
Just like that on tour, you started playing with them?
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to cancel the tour.
Well, they couldn't, you know. So I think they did one show as a 4-piece, and then they called me up. They gave me the repertoire the night before. I stayed up all night learning it as best I could, making notes and charts and stuff, you know.
That's wild.
Flew in. We had a rehearsal in Richmond, Virginia. That was the first show. And then we played the show that night.
Unreal.
That's been with them ever since.
What a story.
And what was going through your head at this time? Like, was it a difficult task in order to have to stay up all night and learn like new music? Like
it was for sure, you know. I've always been a fairly quick learner, so I was able to pick it up, you know. You know, obviously the first show was a little rough, you know, but I picked it up quickly, you know, and made it work. And
what is that like? You know, maybe like for like musicians out there that kind of like, you know, are getting into bands, like, you know, or like parachuting into bands. Like, what does that process look like? You know, you're on the road, you're traveling, you get parachuted into play in a band. How did you learn how to play their music? Was it like, you know, because you mentioned like, can you read music now? Like, were you reading music, or was it
now? But I'm able to make charts.
Okay.
You know, I did make charts for the arrangements and, you know, notes on, you know, what the riffs were and where my harmony parts were.
Yeah.
And then the rest just kind of figured itself out in the rehearsal, you know.
Amazing.
So, not to say it wasn't a huge challenge.
Learning curve,
you know?
But
at the same time, you know, the Jimmy Bowskill band before that was a couple years before I was playing 70s rock and roll. Mm-hmm. You know. Blues influenced 70s rock and roll, so it was kind of in the same wheelhouse.
Yeah, it was same vein. Yeah.
So it was a fairly natural progression to fall into playing rock and roll with those guys, you know.
Yeah, and Sheepdogs. So had you listened to their music before you joined them, or you were fairly familiar with them? Or
obviously I knew who they were.
Yeah.
But there was one time I did some backline teching when I first moved to Toronto, and I lived there for almost 5 years, and I ended up teching one of their shows, and it was at the Royal York Hotel, and they were backing up Paul Rogers from Free and Bad Company that night.
Oh, wow. Royal York Hotel they play?
Yeah.
Where'd they play there?
Some banquet room. It was a big,
Oh,
a
okay.
big hall.
It occurred downstairs.
It was a Canadian Music Week thing.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
I actually teched for them, so we laugh about that,
Yeah.
It was their guitar tech that day.
yeah,
Talk about paying your dues.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
You got
pretty
on the
cool.
ground floor.
It's
Yeah.
so funny how things
Yeah.
come around in life, though, right?
It's super
you just
unique.
never know.
Yeah.
And so what now with the Sheepdogs? So do you still have the Jimmy Bowskill? Like, do you still do your own thing independent of that, or have you become pretty cemented and ingrained with the Sheepdogs right now? And just
Well, we've been super busy,
Yeah.
We
traveling Europe, touring Europe, and
yeah, we're all over the place. Europe
Yeah.
and the States. We've been to Europe, I think 5-6 times this year already, and a lot of back and forth. But we're a busy band, and obviously my own thing has been put on the back burner because we've
Sure.
been so busy.
Was that hard for you in any way, or are you just really happy to be touring the world with a rock band and doing what you love?
Well,
or-
yeah, I had kind of put it on hiatus anyway.
Okay.
About a year, maybe 2 before I was brought on with the Sheepdogs, and I was just doing other things, and I was being a sideman really, so I was playing with a bunch of different folks. and
Okay.
playing different instruments and this and that.
Yeah.
So, I've been working on a record of my own for about 3 years, just as time allows when I'm not on the road, and I plan on releasing it hopefully in the fall.
That's cool. That's exciting.
So
And you played for Blue Rodeo on an album as well? And
Yeah,
A
and
couple years ago? Or you've done some...
yeah, I did a couple tracks on 1,000 Arms, and I did that tour, and I've been playing with them ever since too. As time
good guys,
allows,
eh?
so.
They
They're
seem,
fantastic.
They seem
man.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Jim Cuddy and what's the other guys?
Greg Keeler.
Greg Keeler, yeah.
Yeah.
They have real ties
Yeah.
to this area too, to Peterborough and the Kawarthas, or at least Greg does more
Yeah,
so
Greg
as well.
lives close by. so-
Yeah. So you don't live in Saskatoon now, where
No.
the Sheepdogs originated from. I know you grew up in this area.
Yeah.
But you live in the area, and you like getting back here as much as possible.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely, man.
Yeah.
I live in Port Hope, and I've been there for probably 6 years now. So
Oh, Port Hope, cool.
I love it, man. It's
Yeah.
it's close to here. It's close to Toronto. I can get to Ottawa quick.
Yeah.
Montreal, it's a great central location.
Yeah, it totally is.
But
good
the
central.
pace is way more laid back than the city.
Yeah, fair enough.
I love it, man. It's
Yeah,
great.
that's good.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a nice spot to live.
Awesome.
What's the goal with the Sheepdogs? Just keep doing what you're doing, or do you hope to change things up a bit? Or I mean, you've locked into a real style that people have really obviously embraced.
Yeah.
But how do you morph as a band into something, or do you want to change and evolve, or what does that look like?
Well, I think we're always naturally evolving anyway, and we're starting now we're just starting to write the next album. So we're just starting the creative process again, So it's going to take on its own life, which is always exciting, You can't, obviously there's a sound because that's the way we play.
Yeah.
But, the songs are going to be different all the time and, it's a vibe. So you kind of follow the vibe,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And what does that creative process look like for you? Like, going into the next album, is there kind of a different mindset going into the next album, or is it going to kind of be similar to what you've done in the past?
Well, we're just going to get together and play songs and toss around ideas and kind of let it take form that way,
Awesome.
So I think it's best not to force it and just let it happen as it happens.
So you all write together?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the most part.
That's
Ewan
cool.
is the primary songwriter.
Okay.
And then we toss ideas around.
Right.
And,
Yeah. But you're also a singer, right? Like, people forget the Jimmy Bowskill band was you singing, right? So you
Yeah.
still sing, like you do backup vocals and whatnot, right?
Yeah, everyone in the band sings, and it's a nice, we're all singing.
Yeah.
Lots of harmonies and stuff, which is nice,
That's great. And one of our, so Nora, Cody, if you can grab that.
Yeah.
Nora is a huge fan of yours, Nora McKee, my partner. So she took this of you at one of your gigs at Showplace.
Oh,
And,
fantastic.
I'm not sure what year, or if you remember what year that was, or what gig that was.
That would have been, that's a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she wants you to sign that too. Nora's
Yeah.
one of the
See that?
So
there?
Nora
That's
said
pretty
Neil.
great.
So this is Jimmy. This is Jimmy
Then
in
and now.
2002. This is Jimmy in 2009, 2010. And this is Jimmy now.
Yeah.
Real Jimmy.
Yeah.
The evolution of Jimmy.
Yeah.
So last question, or we'll wrap
Yeah,
up here
we'll wrap up.
because I know you're limited. But Music Fest, I know you're playing there tonight, and by the time this airs, it will have been past. But it would have been a great gig, and it would have been a huge crowd. What is it like for family and friends to be there? I know you mentioned earlier your mother's going to be there?
Yeah, my mom and my grandma.
Yeah.
And
cool. Like, do you look at them during the show? And like,
I'll see them, man. That's the coolest thing, you know. That's the best part about a hometown show is you look out and you see a ton of people that you know.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the last one we did 2 years ago, there was a group of 3 gals right in the front row that I hadn't seen. We used to ride the bus together. From you know, they lived in Millbrook. Cool. The bus would pick them up in Millbrook, pick me up in Baileyboro, and then go to Peterborough, and we'd ride the bus together every day. I hadn't seen them since, you know.
That's wild.
It was neat, man. Like, it's just cool, and you see friends and family out there.
Do you ever feel like you need to stop the show and go, hey, I remember
Hey, you.
Hey, it's been a while.
That's great. That's great. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for jumping on the show today and taking the time out of your busy day. You know, we know that you're playing tonight, just to stop by the studio and just to learn a little bit more about what you're doing, where you're headed, and where you've been. So
absolutely,
it's been
man.
awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome home.
What a pleasure.
Yeah, welcome home. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning into the Studio PTBO podcast. If you're not already, subscribe to our podcast, the Studio PTBO podcast. And if you are listening to the podcast right now, we have a Studio PTBO marketing hacks group. So if you're a business owner that is looking to grow and scale online, highly recommend joining that group. The link is in the link below. And we'll see you soon.